I mixed hybrid in this room for the first time yesterday. Finally did the thing that I've been putting off for a while. I've been putting it off probably because I know I used to love mixing hybrid and I couldn't mix in the box. So then I started mixing in the box, became happy. And the only way I could do that was by not switching back and forth. I had to just do the thing that was harder. And I liked that whole process. The weird part about it is now that I switched to using the hybrid workflow, I can give you the perfect analogy. It's like eating diet chocolate for days, every day, and then weeks, months, diet chocolate only. If somebody slips in a real chocolate bar after months of diet chocolate, this is what you will say. What? What was I eating before? This is amazing. My taste buds forgot how great things could be. Now, before everybody gets up in arms, I got no dog in the fight of trying to get you guys to spend money on anything. That's not my deal. If you've seen any of my stuff, it's no sponsored nothing. I never talk about buy this. There's no links to buy stuff in my bio, in my summary, in my whatever. It ain't there. Why isn't it there? Because delivering my opinions is what I like to do. That's it. So you guys could hear a non-biased, truthful statement from somebody who's spent 9 months now or something like that. I mean, it started somewhere around January in this room. So something like that, trying to mix in the box and be happy. Now, let me give you the whole story. When I started mixing like everyone else, I started in the box. That's how everybody starts. As it went on, I buy one piece of gear at a time, and it was because I had to try an outboard compressor. I got to try a real something. So, the first thing I got was actually the Fusion and the Convert AD Plus. Because once you come out, you got to go back in. So, I wound up going that way. Prior to this, I actually bought the Apogee AD16X and then the DA16X because I really wanted to try going, sending 16 channels out through my Allen and Heath board and then back in through the Apogee AD. And in my findings of that, I actually liked that a lot. However, I kind of shied away from that for the foreseeable, year or two after, because I felt like it wasn't as good as maybe it could be. So even though I liked that, I sort of tried to forget I liked it and then went in the box solely for a while. Then I bought the Fusion. Then I bought, Dangerous Convert AD Plus. Then I bought Neva MBP. Then I was like, how much better can it go? So let me try a 5060 with that. Now, let me just tell you, everybody, the way I look at this. When you run your signal through iron, through transformers, through outboard hardware, it does a thing that makes it sound better than a plugin ever could. And I don't know why, I shouldn't say ever could, because the plugins that may do it just as well maybe have not been invented yet, but will be someday. That's possible. But at the moment, the way I look at it is, after trying for 9 months with, the room improvement, the speaker improvement, I'm in here trying to make In the Box great, thinking it sounds great. And the only way I know that it's not was by doing what I did yesterday and making a hybrid mix and then comparing the two. The hybrid mix I did in under 2 hours. I took an in-the-box version that was already, what I thought was as good as I could do with it after mixing the song for a day. It wasn't a long time, but, 8 hours or so, let's say. As good as I could make it. Compared that to the version I did hybrid. So I just took from there, rerouted stuff to get it all through the gear, made tweaks to stuff because it needed to. As soon as I started sending it out through everything, the levels were all crazy. So I had to make some changes and tweaks. Took everything off the mix bus that was there, so the routing in the session became completely different, but some of the stuff was the same. Like the automation moves I made on the instruments, for the most part, stayed the same. The balance within them I adjusted somewhat, but the automation moves actually held up. When I did that less than 2 hour version that I made hybrid, I've been trying to beat that all day today and yesterday when I got done with that, 2-hour version. I've been trying to beat that, like in the box, because I just wouldn't accept that my in the box mix just pales in comparison to this hybrid one. It's just so much worse. So because of that, I was like, no. Now that I can hear how good it can be because I have a comparison, I'm going to use that and cheat and just reference that while I work the in the box mix, and I'll get it close. No matter what I do, the in the box one doesn't come out and grab me like the hybrid one does. The hybrid one is like a giant with outstretched arms going, come here. The other one isn't. The other one is like the picture, instead of outstretched arms, is like this, and there's a veil over it. Now, no matter what I do in the box, and I tried literally 20 different things, maybe more, in terms of different plugins on the mix bus, different routing. I thought maybe the routing is actually, I thought it was bare bones because that's how I've been working, but it's still too much. So let me take off even more, as direct as possible, just from the tracks right to, a bus comp with a limiter on the end. Nope, that doesn't work. Bus comp, no limiter. That doesn't work. Bus comp, clipper at the end. That doesn't work. Okay, so like, just let's change the balance of the stuff to get it to punch. And I keep flipping back and forth. Okay, that doesn't work. Let's use the SSL Fusion plugin since I got them. And I have a Fusion on the analog one, the hybrid one. Maybe it'll be what I need. Nope, that didn't work. Try the API 2500 instead of the SSL bus comp. That didn't work. I was trying so many different things. Unfairchild made an appearance. None of this stuff held up nearly the same as the other one. And I'm forced to consider the fact that the hybrid one was so quick to make. Like, there was no second guessing. It was just, this sounds pretty good. I looked at the burl. I realized I was clipping it at certain points, and it sounded fine. So I left it. And it was like kind of sometimes clipping it, sometimes not. And I made another version where I was clipping it hard. And when I looked at the waveform, you could see the spikes on the one you clipped hard, making it where there was less transient visible on the waveform. And for some reason, didn't sound as good when level matched to the one that had more transient on it. So for some reason, or the fact that dynamic range is a positive to a certain degree, not when it's crazy amounts, but if it's like you're clipping the converter a lot or moderately clipping it, I have a tendency at the moment, on this song anyway, to prefer the moderately clipped version. And it's just, I can't beat it. So this all could be a symptom of many things, and let me give you some of what those are. If you are somebody who mixes stuff that's not very dense in terms of layering, like, for example, let's say it's electronic music or hip hop, but, very sparse sounding stuff. So you don't have layers and layers and layers and layers of stuff over each other. You may not get the full benefit out of a hybrid mix, because nothing, like, everything is kind of, can be manipulated in such a way where it doesn't step on itself. Whereas for me, and a lot of the stuff I do is rock, it's guitars that are distorted. And that's when I realized that's the biggest thing that I think the guys who mix on consoles, like more of the guys who use consoles mix that kind of stuff probably than most other genres. And there's a mix all around of everybody doing everything, including Andrew Sheps does rock, and he's in the box, I know. But have you heard Blood Sugar Sex Magic? Have you heard what those mixes sound like? Mixed on a console by Brendan O'Brien. I'm not, saying Andrew Sheps' mixes aren't great. I think the guy's amazing, and he's super talented. But I also know that for the amount of guys that mix rock and use hardware to do it, there's a correlation here. It's because saturated guitars that are distorted, you need to get every bit of life out of that mix. And as soon as you have that layered stuff, we're talking multiple guitars on top of each other, multiple vocals, doubled, tripled on top of each other, and they're holding notes. It's not like, hip hop or rap. You got one guy singing and maybe a hook thing, but it's like the arrangement is way, way less dense. you can get away with in the box for stuff like that. I'll even say for like jazzy or funk stuff that's not super dense. I'm talking about like one guitar or two guitars, but arranged really well. So nobody's playing at the same time on the same stuff. It's not super layered. Like Wolfpack. Why do Wolfpack mixes sound so good? It occurred to me, like he's mixing in the box. Why do they sound so good? Well, Jack makes great mixes, but the arrangements drive those mixes to be what they are because nobody plays on top of each other and there's no distorted guitars. As soon as you add those things that are distorted, that's where your problems lie. That's where the hardware really steps up because, I'm not special. I ran through the iron and the transformers. In under 2 hours, everything comes out and wants to grab me, as opposed to the other way. It feels flatter, just flatter. If you didn't have the two to compare, you might be perfectly happy with the flatter one. But if you do have the two to compare, and here's the other part of this, and this is why the guys that mix in the box only and don't own any analog hardware at all, that's why they champion this cause so much of you can mix in the box, you can mix in the box. They're the ones that do that, whereas the guys that have the hardware, they all say the same thing. All of them, sure, you can mix in the box. Sounds better with hardware. Sure, you can mix in the box. Like, you can do anything. It's because they have the comparison, because they have both. So they've probably compared both many times, like I did, 15 or whatever different versions trying to make it beat it. Couldn't do it. So I know there's a huge difference. And the guys who don't have the hardware want to believe the top guys today don't use it and yada, yada, yada. The other thought about that is, once you're a name and you've got hits under your belt, people are going to use you for that. And they might give you some benefit of the doubt in terms of how an in-the-box mix sounds great unless you compare it to one that's not. So I'm not sure how many of those guys that hire the top guys that mix in the box, I'm not sure how many of them are also comparing it to an amazing mixer who is mixing in some sort of hybrid workflow. And if they did, I bet you the results would be telling. I'm not saying one guy would win that or lose that, because a lot of the guys who mix in the box at the top level at some point absolutely did a mix while another guy probably mixed shoot out of several guys. Rick Rubin loves to do those kind of things. So the best mix would win. So, but every mix is that mixer's vision of what it should be. So when I add all this stuff up, what it makes me think is that me and my ears, for whatever reason, work so well with the hardware, so much better than with the in-the-box only. And some other people might be the opposite. But for the kind of music that I do a lot of, the rock stuff, with a lot of layered guitars, I'm a guitarist. Of course I'm going to layer guitars. Of course. There's going to be guitar on guitar and solo and, this is vocal layering and harmony layer. There's going to be such a dense, saturated mix. I need all the iron I can get. So that realization I had of adding the Neve channel strips to an insert point on the 5060, so I've got 6 more channels of input transformer, output transformer, on more iron. What I realize is the more you get, the better, which is why people love consoles, because there's so much iron in there that by the time it comes out, everything sounds sweeter and better and nicer and just better, okay? So this made me think of something else. Consoles are a fortune, right? They are a fortune. When you go into it to buy a cheap console thinking it's going to help you, I just have to give you my experience with the Allen and Heath thing. It didn't really help. It made things a little better, but marginally better. So marginally that I couldn't really justify doing that. So, and that was a decent console, but it wasn't, a world beater console. And the world beater consoles are as much as a house or more, and who can afford those? So I want to add this little caveat to this whole conversation. In my opinion, the guys that work with the individual pieces, like Colt, like Mixbus TV, David, the guys that do that, it's not without really having thought it all through. Like, it's a smart play to have many different colors, to not be required to have 4 guys, 3 guys help you move something in, unless you get a 16-channel version, a minimum of 2 guys around you to move a console in wherever you're, whatever. Also, do you have a loading dock? Is your setup on the ground floor? Because if it's not, add more problems to it. Do you have hallways to get through that are janky and you gotta stairs and hallways? That's another issue you're gonna have. Are you gonna want to control where you live and where you go in your life based on the fact that this thing won't fit, or you can't use? You got to pick your house or whatever, your apartment, based on if it'll work and fit this giant beast? Or do you want to be somebody who can basically do it all themselves, move one piece at a time? Anytime you want to sell something, how easy is it? Take one piece out, list it, sell it, buy something else. If it breaks, one piece, I know that the other way, you could potentially take a module out and switch it with another and fix a module. I know some of the consoles more modular than others. However, it's way easier to do everything I just mentioned when you have multiple different pieces. So it makes perfect sense why people would go that route. So much sense. Also because you can keep experiencing these step ups, these little step ups. You got a guy like Glenn, who I love watching his channel, and the dude's awesome. And he waited 15 years or something to buy 20 years to buy that console, the Neve Genesis Black. Well, you could have experienced a little bit of joy constantly, all the time, if you kept, making the money and then putting it into one piece. Now you took a little step up, because that's what I'm telling you is my steps up that the sound took in terms of how much better it got improved with every piece I added. And now, just by, using this slightly different method that I hadn't really considered before, took me from where it was before hybrid to even higher of a level. Just by adding everything I had, essentially, that made sense to use. There's a couple things I have that I'm not using because it doesn't feel like it makes sense at the moment. But just by doing that, I took a step up. So that clearly means to me that every step of the way, if I just add one piece here, it could keep improving. I'll experience the joy. I don't have to break the bank on it. I don't have to decide everything about where I'm going to live and based on moving this giant beast, of a console into and out of the space. That's just, it's a reality of life. When people want to fantasize about what it would be like to own things and do whatever, that's all well and good if you're fantasizing about consoles. If your reality is, I know I'm not moving, I know I'm staying right here for 20 years or whatever, it's like I'm not going nowhere, then it might make sense. And I have the facility for it, and the people around me, and the techs to come out to fix things if it can't be taken out and shipped. There's so much to it. And you have to decide all that before you go and get that. Whereas the other way, you're pretty much always open to buy it, sell it, whatever, and certain things maintain their value. The smaller the thing, the easier it is to ship. You could sell it to anyone. There's a lot of guys out there who can spend $2, $3, $4, $5,000. Like, they can, more of those guys out there than can spend $100,000, $75,000, $150,000, even 50. Like, there's going to be way less of the amount of buyers than you would need to sell something quickly or easily, especially if you're out somewhere not near all these people. I'm talking not California, not near New York, not near Nashville. Take out the big places, not near Austin. Where are you going to get people, a lot of them, around to buy something like that? It becomes way harder. They know they got to come look at it. They got to arrange shipping. And if you're not close to those major hubs, makes it very hard to get rid of a big console. Whereas the little stuff, you list on Reverb, list it on eBay, ship it wherever. It's not a fortune. That's the move. If you ask me, that's the move. Nobody has to be somebody who can go out and afford to buy a console in order to improve your mixes. All you need to do is gradually get there one step at a time if you decide you want to go this route. And the other thing is, if you're not doing the kind of music that really needs and benefits from something giving you more dynamics, more movement, more of that, come out and grab you. If you're not going to benefit from the stuff that actually makes the analog hybrid workflow why it's so good, then you don't need it either. If your arrangements are sparse, if you don't have distorted guitars in your music, look at Wolfpack. That song Deantown sounds amazing. The mix is great. There's bleed on the instruments, like it sounds old school. It has a great vibe. Sounds great. Also, there's no distorted guitars. There's no layered stuff over each other. It's basically a live recording that sounds amazing. Like, for all intensive purposes, it's what it is. There's not tons of vocal layering and harmonies. It's so sparse. That's why it sounds good. That's why an in-the-box mix works for something like that. Now, if you compared that mix to Jack doing a mix in a hybrid style that he was comfortable with, then you'd be able to tell whether one was better or not. Whereas if you have no comparison and your stuff isn't all stepping on each other, it may be fine in the box and you may be good with that. So that's what I'm saying. Don't look at this like you need to buy stuff or anything. You may be doing a type of music that doesn't even benefit from this, because you do get certain benefits in the box. Like, I've always found you can get way louder in the box is how it feels, because in the hardware form, like if I don't want to hear the compression, I can only hit it a certain amount. If I don't want to hear the clipping converter, I can only hit it a certain amount. So that you're sort of constrained by certain things that, if with plugins, there's ways to get more loudness. Are they helpful? Do they not beat on your ear? I don't know about, I've made my videos on that, talking about how the louder you get, the harsher you get. And a lot of times you're bringing up all the stuff that makes it painful to listen to. So where I stand and my point of view now, like, I like not using all those plugins for loudness. I like just using the hardware and printing it into the, and leaving it there. I'm not going to try to go for volume, because I'm past that stage in my life. That's what it is, where I know that doesn't help. Like, I've learned that lesson, and we all have lessons to learn. So questions, comments, answers, hit the like button, subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, because there's going to be tons more videos coming with all sorts of stuff. Evan Jaffe, Custom Cut Studios. I hope you guys dug it. Keep in mind, everybody, you guys got this. Take it easy.